Okay, guys, welcome to this wealth creation show. And today we're going to look at cracking the code of collaboration. And we're going to try and talk our way through different approaches to, how collaboration can really uplift and push things forward for anybody, whether you're a leader in business, whether you're trying to create your own wealth creation strategy and build a business, or anything and your goals and objectives that you're trying to achieve at the moment. Collaboration is or can be an important aspect to that. So we're going to delve into that today. Jim, you have a smile on your face. So I'm assuming you've got something.
Because I'm going, oh, I'm a lone wolf.
Yeah, I know that.
This is a tough subject for me because I am what you call a lone wolf. Lone wolves actually, they're on their own. It clearly says it does what it says in the tin. They build their own empires, their own wealths.
Yeah.
But they realize that they need other people to collaborate with, and this is quite important. Dare I say they don't play well with other people? I think they play well with other people they get on with, and play well with other people that see their way of thinking. But they don't play well with other lone wolves. It's like, it's like the head of the pack, if that makes sense. So collaboration, and it's finding who your pack is. You've got to think about that as well. Hence the reason, and I'm going to drop it here. It's Necker Island. It's like, around people that are millionaires, billionaires, is why I go there. That's the reason why. Is because as a lone wolf, it's like, yeah, that's my pack. It's difficult to find somebody that has the same sort of, I wouldn't say we've got the same mentality. I think the same sort of level of they want more, they want to aspire for more, they want to build wealth. They're in business empires, which, dare I say, it's like when I remember Alan Dawson used to say to me, he says, Alan used to say to me, I always like playing with golfers that are better than me. And I'm like, really? Why is that? And he used to say it's because they bring my game up, they bring my level up. I think that's the most important point, and that's what collaboration is all about, I think.
Yeah, because then that makes sense. Because if you were, let's take golf for instance, if you're playing golf with people that are far less experienced or good at the game than you are, you're not really going to try very hard because you know you could beat them. Whereas if you've got people that are a lot better than you, you're going to keep pushing yourself to try and be better.
Yeah, definitely. It ups your game. I mean, when I'm cycling up the hill and Richard Branson's 74-year-old and he's battering away ahead of me, I'm like, I'm pretty pish at this. but it pushes me more. It pulls me more, I would say. But it also pushes me more. So on bits, actually, rather than see last year when I did that, I had the great fortune on the Sunday morning. It was just Richard and I. No one else. That was it. 3 hours uninterrupted time with somebody who is extremely successful in their field. And I got to ask them anything. And you bet I asked them anything. But what I'm saying is, what we did at that time is, when last year I killed myself to do it. And I was out of the game for the Wednesday because I was just so sore. This year, I thought, I'm going to conserve myself this time. So it was actually Richard's suggestion. He says, Jim, I'm an expert at this. I've got the right bike for this. This hill, more or less, mountain. It was like that all the way up. You got to the point, when you're on a bike and you actually pedal too hard and you could do a wheelie. Because it's not because you pedal too hard and you've pulled it. It's you pedal too hard and the slope is that big. You'll end up falling over. You know how you see on tractors and fields when they go over. That's kind of how hard. That was the blooming incline on that hill that we were going up the mountain. We were going up on the mountain bikes. So he says, you probably better get off here. So I got off, but I actually ran up the hill instead. So because I wasn't going to give up. There was no way I was giving up. I actually ran up the hill and I thought, I'm gonna either run or walk up here. And I managed to get up part of the way, and then I got on the bus to go up to the top. We got back on the bikes again. We went on our way. But I certainly did a lot better than last year. So I was more prepared. See the collaboration thing. I'd been I'd already seen it from before. I knew what was coming. He'd played a sneaky one, though. Instead of just going to Hog's Head, which is at the top, and going back down, he went, oh, let's go right round. What? It's 10 miles. It's 10 miles of going woohoo and down and up and down 750 meters each time on a wee island. That's how high that was on a mountain bike. So I wasn't prepared for that. So a couple of times I actually took a sabbatical, and then when Wednesday came along, I was right as rain again, because I knew what was coming and I'd prepared myself. So this is probably why collaboration is so important with other people that are probably more successful than you. You've got to get around other people more successful than you, but how you determine how successful they are is entirely up to yourself. That's why it's important to do some of the things that we talk about in the next hour here. But how you get up that hill or how you do that thing is entirely up to yourself, how you do it. And I had prepared myself for it. So that's why, as I say, collaboration is so important. It's definitely that. I hate to name drop, but let's be honest. It's why would you know? It's why would you not say something like that? Because it is about social proof. It is about getting around other people. I mean, there was Kevin Dunlap, wealth manager, 400 million fund that he runs. There's Brian Sidman, which is like he chartered his own plane to get there and then get back out of Necker Island. I'm like, I'm getting the plane. Are you coming, Brian? He's like, no, I've got my own plane.
Got my own one.
Like, sorry. It's like, what? You got your own plane? I says, I'll just come with you. And he went, come with me if you want. I'm like, really? It says, all right, if you want. I says, no, we've got our chat. We've got our plane fixed anyway. We're all right. We'll just go.
Yeah.
You've got all these different people. Danny as well. Danny was up on the Wednesday. Danny's an attorney in Miami. He's obviously a very successful attorney because that's why he's on Necker.
Yeah.
Great tennis player, by the way. I need to learn tennis. I was learning tennis actually when I was
tennis is a hard one. Tennis is a really hard one. Like physically exerting.
That was Danny. Have you seen when we were doing the cold plunge?
I did.
The cold plunge. Yeah, that was Danny. It was Richard was pushing back in. It's like, get in, you wee woos, because he had his shoulders up, and it was like, you're going to get nailed for that. And it's like, no, get right down there. Richard pushing him back down into the water. That's the sort of collaboration that you need to get around. But for somebody just starting out, just get around people are just a bit more successful than you in that business. Yeah.
Yeah, we were just going to talk about that off camera, obviously between ourselves. Do you know, finding those people that, do you know, kind of align with where you want to be or what you want to do, and are that wee bit more successful in things. Be careful that they are actually successful in what they do and they're not just all smoke and mirrors. But, do you know, successful people and leaders and things like Richard and other people that you were talking about there, do you know, they'll all contest to the fact that collaboration with their teams and with employees and things over the years has helped them get to where they are, and they will have learned from one another, I would imagine.
Yeah, you do. You learn from one another. I mean, you've never got a strength. You've maybe got strengths in your own field, but you've not got all the strengths in all the fields. So clearly, you have to take into account who's good at what they do and pull on their strengths for that reason. So the collaboration, the cracking the code for collaboration is definitely a team player. You have to be. And that's why at the beginning I purported and I joked about being a lone wolf. I've been a lone wolf all my life for a long time. And I think it's been inherently drilled into me by my father, because he was a lone wolf. You know, it's like, it's either my way or the highway. That was my dad's take on everything. And his business never grew as a result of that, because he was just burning through people all the time because it was his way or the highway. He never saw anybody else's way of seeing things. I mean, he taught me a huge amount of valuable lessons about how to do stuff and how not to do stuff, and more importantly as well. So dare I say, and it's not any disrespect to him or his memory, I learned from a lot of his failures. And I thought that was some of the biggest lessons I learned from a lot of the things that he did, and he failed at, but he was more successful in a lot of other things which offset it, which is like most people will do anyway.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, he was probably the only window cleaner, because he was a window cleaner at that time. And I remember somebody who thought he was more successful than my father turned to my father and talked about, debt and mortgages on your house and stuff like that. And it really put his nose out of joint when my dad said, yeah, but I don't have a mortgage. And the guy that was talking to him about it was high up as a area manager with a building society, and he looked at my dad and thought, window cleaner, no mortgage, debt free, living the life, and I'm a area manager with a mortgage. Well,
I think mortgage
building society. Aye,
yeah.
It's like, what am I doing wrong?
Mm-hmm.
That really got in that person's goat, believe it or not.
So then, do you know? And the only way to figure out what obviously he was doing right and what he was doing wrong, or not wrong, but not doing what he had to be successful. Maybe it's obviously I've broken down a few things for us to cover today, and the first thing is about listening rather than talking. And a lot of people do it, and I find myself doing this quite a lot. Is when people are talking, you're always getting ready to speak instead of actually listening what they're going to say. I mean, there'll be a lot of people that do that, and as I say, I find myself doing it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? And rather than actually listening to the advice that's actually or whatever's been said to you, you're too busy thinking about what you're going to say next. And listening is one of the best ways to learn from people, especially somebody that's more successful or is in a better position than what you are. And that's where a lot of people fall foul. They don't listen enough.
Yeah, I think that's a real great point. We're all quick to have an answer before we even hear what anybody else has got to say. For me personally, I pick my moments where I need to. Hey, shut up, Jim. You've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. Mm-hmm. And this is quite important because I do a lot of talking on the Wealth Creation Show for obvious reason, because it's, if somebody's moderately successful like myself, people want to learn from that. Mm-hmm. So that's why I tend to do all the talking to a degree. But there's a lot of times where you'll see me in a room and I will not say a word while the speaker's talking, and taking loads and loads of notes and writing everything down, even though the person says, I'll hand out notes later on, right? They say I'll hand out notes later on, and I'm still taking notes, because your power of retention is higher when you write it down and listen to it and watch someone saying it at the same time, because you're engaging all the different, all the different senses at the same time. And especially if, like, for example, you have a beautiful smell, it comes across at the same time. A classic example is when Richard's talking about something and you're on Necker Island and the cool breeze comes in from the sea. And I actually said, there was a point I actually said, I talked about anchoring when we were out on the hobby boats, when we were racing each other. And I talked about anchoring, and I said to Andrew Cargill, who works for Shopify, I said to him, this is a moment you need to anchor, Andrew, and remember this moment. And this is what will bring you back next year. Because every single time you come across anything that's challenging, you can reflect back to this point that you anchored and reflect back to how you felt and the smell of the ocean, because it was Atlantic Ocean, the smell of Atlantic Ocean, the sun beating down on you. You're sitting on a raft with friends, you're having a good laugh, and you're racing each other over at Bitter End, which is over in the British Virgin Islands, across the other end on Virgin Gordo, and you're racing over there on your hobby boats to get there, and that feeling will never leave you if you don't want to let it. And that's the point where you listen and you don't talk. And when somebody's at a speaker in a room, classic example, another one, is when I was sitting at a property investment summit a couple of years back, and there's this guy telling me I've got 26 properties and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and I'm a side hustler and all the rest of it. And he asked me a question and I tried to answer it, and then he interjected and told me how successful he was. And I just kept completely quiet. And I thought, yeah, okay. You're obviously clearly wanting just to tell me how great you are and how fantastic you are, and you don't really want to listen to my answer at all. So there's no point in me stopping you.
If he had stopped and maybe listened to you, he missed the opportunity where, and I was going to talk about where if you listen more, you missed the opportunity to advance the conversation and things. If he had maybe give you a chance to speak and listen to you, he could have learned a lot from you because you were sitting next to him probably more successful than what he is.
You want to see his face. You want to see his face when the speaker referred to me later on.
I'd be like,
and said to me, I think we've got one of the most successful investor landlords in the room, Jim Parker. And the boys, and I had a wee look at, I had a glance at the side of my chin and he out the side of my eye, and his chin about dropped. You saw he's like, oh my God. And I was sitting blowing my own trumpet to this guy, and he was like, he's more successful than me. And it's but that's the things that happen, isn't it? It's not about being the most successful in the room. It's about just learning from other people's experiences and from their wisdom in order to help you move on to be more successful at what you're doing. That's why you listen and don't talk.
Yeah, listening can be quite a powerful tool. And I like how you said about that anchoring, anchoring those moments in time, because your mind's a really powerful thing. And if you take that opportunity, like you said, to anchor that kind of time and feeling, and you could transport yourself right back there, and all because you took the time just to take a step back, not to be the one talking, and just to take things in and listening to what's going around and kind of absorbing your surroundings, especially in a situation like obviously on Necker and things, to be able to transport yourself back to that in your mind, which you can do very easily if you've taken the time to really take it in.
Yeah. That to me is the most important point of listening, because of what you'll learn for that reason. I think it also applies to in your job. Classic example. Again, I come back to saying all the years that I've been, because I remember I used to be an employee, I used to work in industry and manufacturing, but I remember a lot of times where a lot of people would talk over everybody else because they all think they've got the answer, but no one wants to listen to anyone else, and nothing really gets achieved as a result of that because everybody thinks, no. And maybe a good example of that is social media. Look at when somebody asks a question. It's like the amount of people that pile in. Or somebody gives, I tell you what, somebody gives a bit of advice and everybody piles on top of that person, telling them how wrong they are. It's like, well, instead of telling somebody how wrong you are, tell somebody how right you are then. You know what I mean? So instead of piling on somebody and actually saying on social media, it's like, no, that's no correct. Go in and tell them what the correct answer is then, if that's the case. Don't pile on somebody else. Just leave them. But a lot of people need to tell other people how wrong they are in order to elevate their own status.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
That's especially not a way to do things.
No.
That's definitely not being collaborative. That's been destructive. And then that person doesn't understand why it's not happening for them. And it's because they're being destructive and they're not being collaborative. I don't like people like that. I just ban and delete them from conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people go, oh, but you shouldn't do that. It's like, hey, it's my feed. It's my question. I have every right to remove someone from the conversation if I want, just because I don't like it. That's all. That's entirely up to you. It's like, would you expect somebody to come in and do a shit right in the middle of your carpet in your house?
Jeez, no.
When that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I know.
That's effectively in a nutshell. I know, yeah. And that's why I'm saying it on here, and I'm saying it publicly, but that's effectively what these type of people are doing. You don't need these people in your life.
No, they're walking right into your space, whether it's on social media or whatever, and being disruptive and not really the energy you want, then just get rid of them.
Yeah, you don't need them in your life. Ban and delete them. Just get rid of them. Don't fall foul of this thing. Oh, be nice to people. Give them an alternative answer. Listen, there's billions of people in the world that you can have a great conversation with. You don't need to have conversations with shitheads like that.
Yeah. And listening to the right people and actually taking that time to listen to them and what they're actually saying and taking it in. Like I say, it gives you that opportunity to really advance any conversation and have these responses that are, expansive questions. Like, actually based on what they've been saying to you rather than what you've already had programmed in your head to say. Do you know? And that's where the conversation then leads in a much better collaborative path. So, and you're spending that time focusing on the listener and not yourself. I think that these are really important things. But
which is why I ask sometimes, so what have you done? So when somebody says something like that, I usually say, so what have you done that actually can add to this conversation then? Mm-hmm. That's what I say. So, and that really rubs people up the wrong way sometimes, because it's like, whoa, I'm getting challenged now. You're the one that put yourself forward. Yeah. It's like, so tell me what you think the solution is. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, I've not got a solution. I just want to criticize somebody. Well, shut up and sit in the corner then. Yeah. Because nobody likes people like that. Let's be honest. So you're right. Expansive questions. That's what will get you to the next step. Mm-hmm. Why did you do that? How did you do this? When did that happen? I've been thinking about a podcast on that sort of line. I know what effort it takes to do the podcast though, so I might actually just start off on a different platform. Mm-hmm. That'll come later, by the way. But this is key about focusing on who's talking and focusing on the listener. And focusing on and being the listener as well. And dare I say, become comfortable with being silent. We've talked about this quite a lot.
That's where people fall foul, because a lot of people are not comfortable sitting quiet. Like even if you and I were to sit here and not say anything for a few seconds. Now I'm going to speak first because it feels uncomfortable, and it takes a lot to not be uncomfortable in a silent, especially when you're sitting like uncomfortable silences people talk about. Yeah. But you need to be comfortable with just being silent and listening and taking in what's going around you.
That's a great way to learn. That means being silent in your head as well and not thinking about numerous things. You know, I had a conversation with someone the other day, and I was talking about, we were talking about phoning a customer up and what to say to them. I says, go and phone me up hypothetically and treat me like the customer. So so they phoned me up and I did a wee like sort of role play. Mm-hmm. And they phoned me up and they went blah 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 blah, and I wasn't looking at them. And they went, why are you not looking at me? And I went, well, I'm on the phone, so I wouldn't see you.
You don't see the expression.
Yeah. So I need to experience what you're saying in my ear, not what I'm seeing through my eyes as well, because that obviously has another sense, which makes it a lot more palatable what you're saying, because you can process it. So I need to hear it through my ear only. So blah 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 blah. And by the time they got to the end, I thought, God Almighty! I says, I am mentally exhausted. I says, because you've piled everything on me, and I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm still trying to think about the first thing you'd actually said and how that would apply to me. She says, I never thought about it like that. You're right. Says, yeah. I says, but that's fine.
So much on at one time.
Yeah. That's fine. It's like, because the other person at the other end needs to be able to understand what's going on. And that's why you have to sometimes slow down and give that space in between, to give somebody else the time to think. And also because they're listening to you. Because it is overwhelming. I've been sitting with customers sometimes doing that, like blah, 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 verbally spewing up on them, basically, giving them everything, thinking, they're going to thank me for this. When they've got to the end, it's like, oh my God, my head.
Yeah, I've caught myself in the past, and obviously, but learned from it. Do you know, especially when I'm doing lettings and things, there's so much involved in lettings, and especially if somebody's completely new to landlord, completely new to lettings and things. And because it's second nature to me, because I do it all the time, and you're doing it, and I'm like, and then I realise I've just went through that at about 100 miles an hour, and their brains probably switched off.
Frazzled.
Yeah.
Frazzled. As soon as somebody comes on the phone to me and starts reeling off everything, Stephen Brown phoned me the other night. That's our, anybody wants to know, that's our one of our trainers for our agents. And he talked about a new, look, I've got speakers and this and speakers and that. I goes, that sounds brilliant, Stephen. Go and put something in an email to you. Because at this point in time, I'm still jet lagged. And I have not got a clue what you've just said to me. But it sounds good.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't process it quick enough. because he was reeling it off. But I know, yeah, we're going to have that speaker, this speaker, that speaker, and new beginners and new starts and seasoned veterans and all the rest of it. And it's like, wow, that sounds really good. I like that. I like that. But I can't process it. So please send an email. And he sent an email to me. I looked at it this morning. I went, yep. Question back and forward. Yeah, deal done. Easy as that. Now, I wanted to buy at that point in time from Stephen. But if he had forced the issue with me, I wouldn't have bought. That would have been me done. But he let me have time to think about it. And he listened. He listened and he accepted, just send the email. He didn't assume that just send an email, that's a brush off, and I don't want to deal with that person. That wasn't a brush off at all. That was like, I'm just overwhelmed. Send something to me. See if we can get a job done. If it sounds good, I'm up for it. Simple as that. So that's why it's important to listen and take on board what someone else is saying, because it will help you in your ultimate journey.
Yeah, and I think if you're doing phone calls or you're doing discussions with people and things, and there's questions that you want answers to, like you're saying, Jim, don't just spew them all out at one time. Say a question, be comfortable with being silent after that, and let the other person process and answer you. And then obviously do that if there's several questions.
Yeah, I've got the Olympic gold for talking the hind legs off a donkey. Honestly, once I get started, I get enthusiastic. Once I get enthusiastic, I get carried away. But I do realise it is overpowering for a lot of people. So we were on these subjects then, and we've talked about listening. We've probably done that to death, to be honest. But so then, cracking the code of collaboration. What do you think is the next thing we've got to think about in terms of collaboration?
So during any collaboration, there's at some point going to be conflict. And then that's where you really need to then look at practicing empathy and empathize with the other person or other people that you're dealing with. We'll all have experienced conflict in some manner of speaking. So maybe cast your mind back and think about that time of conflict. And were you empathetic to the other people? Were you considerate about the situation? Probably not, no.
Most people will probably say no, because they probably weren't listening.
Yeah, and that's what this kind of follows on from listening.
Yeah, empathy is quite a good one, but also sympathy is, if you've gone through it, then clearly you can be sympathetic towards someone else. It could be the death of a parent. So you understand. So I'm talking about in terms of real estate. When we sit down, we've got a deceased estate. I've just recently gone through it at the start of the year, so it's I wouldn't say it's easy. I wouldn't use the word easy, but I can sympathise with someone else because I knew how I felt at the time as well. I kind of still feel about it, but if you've not gone through that, then you obviously empathy is where you can practice. You can be empathetic towards someone, empathetic towards the feelings, empathetic towards where they are right now in their life, empathetic towards what they're going to have to do next and the journey they're going to have to take to get everything done, to do whatever they need to do. And that's really quite a good thing. I tend to be quite an empath, I would say.
Yeah.
I take on people's, if you look at Star Trek, Deanna Troi is an empath. That's what she is. She's the ship's counselor. For most people, are Trekkies. So Deanna Troi is the ship's counselor, and she's an empath. So she picks up on people's feelings, and she feels them as well. I kind of think I've got a bit of that. Sometimes that's why I stay away from some people, because I'm so empathetic with them. It's like I end up getting down there with them, and it's quite difficult, especially if you're at a time where you're mentally drained. So I have to stay away from them for that reason. And I've had it in the past where people have actually said to me, it's like, why am I not hearing from you anymore? Or why what's going on and all the rest of it? And it's like, I'm going to protect myself more than anything.
Take on your baggage as well as my own.
Yeah, well, that's effectively it. I can't take on your situation because I've just got, we're all got busy lives. We've all got situations in our life where we're still struggling with, so we're still challenged with. And that's what particularly happened. I'll give you an insight into that, being quite empathetic. Will I tell this story? Yeah, possibly. Okay, let's tell this story. I'm out cycling with Richard Branson. We're going up the hill, and I says, look, Richard, one of the conversations we had, I said, look, I'm a bit of an introvert, Richard. This is newsflash to everybody, by the way. It's like, really? Yeah, I'm an introvert. I tend to I'm quite happy sitting in my own silence and sitting in a wee darkened room. I'm quite happy doing that. I'm quite happy just working on my own. Hence the reason why I talked about lone wolf.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable within that, and I love it. But I know now and again I have to get out of that comfort zone, and I have to be an extrovert to a degree, and I have to do things like this. And I said, so, it's kind of like I'm in this darkened room. The team, you guys, put an appointment in my diary. You wheel me out to do my thing, and then I go back to the darkened room. Yeah. Do you know what he said to me? I wish I could do that.
That's quite interesting, actually. That's what he would. That's what
he's an introvert.
Yeah,
I think he's an introvert. And yet, all his life, he's been
a public
and soul and out there and all the rest of it. I have a sneaking suspicion he's an introvert, and he just has to keep doing it now because it's part of the brand and all the rest of it. I think he's told where to go and what to do and what to wear and everything like that, and that's kind of where he is. And I think he does love it. He does love it. He does love it because he does love it. Because he said something else to me which I'm not going to repeat on here, but I did tell you off camera, didn't I? When we were cycling up the hill.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to tell anybody else publicly what he said to me. But you know that, Richard.
Yeah.
But that's what he said to me. So he must love what he does still. And it's quite interesting then. So like, when you think about it, it wasn't being empathetic with me at that point in time. He was actually being sympathetic with me at that point in time. And me with him as well.
He understands.
And the fact that, I completely get it. I completely get it. And I think most people are like that.
And you'll probably find that a lot of people who others perceive to be very outgoing and a public figure or quite comfortable being in front of a camera or in front of people might actually be an introvert and really enjoy more their own downtime and being on their own.
Yeah. Here's another introvert for
I
you.
love my own time.
Sergey Brin.
Yeah.
Sergey Brin. So bumped into him. We're having a wee chat.
What's the guy that started?
Richard and I, Sergey Brin, Google founder. We're having a wee chat, and we were trying to convince him to come out on a bike ride, and he was like, "No, it's not my thing." It's like, well, you want to come out, on the boats or do something. It's like, no, sports isn't my thing, and I think my initial perception is that he's a bit an introvert as well. He just likes I think he just likes being a lone wolf as well. He likes being on his own. He likes his own company, and he likes to choose where he wants to go when he wants to do it. Whereas other people love to be the life and soul of the party. And you had people like that on Necker as well. They just want to be life and soul of the party all the time. They were on the tables dancing every 2 minutes, and I'm like, what's going on here? Who does that? It's like, clearly them. But I understand other people's personality profiles now. So I understand, that's just who they are. They love doing what they're doing. And I love the fact that they love doing what they're doing. So I can I can be empathetic towards them, even though I wouldn't do that myself.
Yeah. So that's quite interesting, because it was the next thing I was going to just kind of talk about there, to do with empathy and things. When you bring people together, everybody's always going to have different views or different beliefs or a different approach to things. And being able to understand, right, okay, they have this way of thinking or this belief because, or ask them why, and take the time to understand and be empathetic to their views, as opposed to being very narrow-minded, as a big part of successful collaboration as well. And you just said it the other day, like, I understand that's the way they are and that's fine, rather than being quite narrow-minded and being like, that's ridiculous, why are you doing that?
The guy's an idiot or the woman's an idiot. What are they doing? It's like
they're enjoying themselves.
Yeah, it's just the way they are. And then you saw the rest of them. That then immediately gave permission for the other extroverts to get up on the table and dance as well. Richard's been renowned for getting up and dancing on tables as well. I didn't think he doesn't really want to do that anymore, and I have a sneaking suspicion it's in case he falls and hurts himself. He's very, very protective of his health.
His tempo.
Yeah, he's very, very protective of his health. Definitely, and I'm quite rightly so. I mean, he's 74 years old, There's no doubt about it. Average age is, I think, 80, maybe 89, whatever it is. So it's creeping up. So why would you not want to do that? But I tell you what, as a business leader and a pioneer, and also as an influencer, yeah, definitely, and doing things for other people, that's probably the most important thing. I love that about him for that reason.
Yeah,
and his rock right behind him, which is no one ever sees, is Joan.
his wife.
Yeah, flipping heck. Joan's the one that helps everybody. Joan's over at me saying, like, you're having trouble sleeping, here, take this. It's like, what? It's like, and then just coming over and everything like that, and having a wee chat with me, and it was really great. It was like I wouldn't have liked to call Joan my second mum, because I would call her an old friend if that was the case.
That kind of, but has that maternal kind of.
She's a lovely woman, definitely. Yeah, definitely. But again, showing loads of empathy or sympathy, because she's a bit like that as well. She, doesn't sleep very well, and obviously looks at different ways of being able to do that. So giving advice when it comes down to it. So again, that's coming back to listening. I could easily go, "Oh, John, it's like I'm going to tell you all about me." It's like, no, Jim, shut up and listen.
Yeah, because there's probably stuff you could learn from her, because she's obviously dealt with it for a long time.
Of course. Because she was the one that told me a lot of things about Richard that Richard wouldn't tell me. And she's quite happy to tell me
by listening. Yeah. But definitely. But empathy, and I think when you focus on conveying empathy more than sharing your own opinions and things, everybody becomes a wee bit more satisfied with the discussion in hand and things, and showing that empathy makes others more likely to ask you your point of view then, and then that's where then collaboration evolves, and it proceeds in a much more smooth a more smooth process rather than conflict, and empathy is the best way to approach that. So we spoke about, obviously, listening, empathy, and then we're going to talk about feedback, and being comfortable with feedback. I think is the most important thing to think about it, because a lot of people aren't comfortable with feedback. People could take it quite negatively.
I never used to take it well. I used to think, wait a minute, I'm perfect in what I do. Honestly, I used to be like that, and folk are saying, what do you mean you used to be like that? But I'm a lot more open to accepting feedback now. I know a guy that no longer has his business. His business empire was wiped out, basically. We probably both know that person. Business empire was wiped out completely, because he would just never take any feedback at all. Anything he would take, like, he would jump on you, down your throat as soon as possible. And I'm going, like, I'm only just trying to give you it so I can help you. That's all. I says, it's no criticism. It's like, what do you know? And it's like, okay, forget it. I'll no bother saying anything ever again. Needless to say, his business empire is no longer here as a result, because he just wouldn't listen. But he does have another empire that he's building again, and I think this time he's learned all his lessons. In terms of he's learned his lessons the hard way. Yeah, he's learned by experience rather than wisdom. And I would rather learn by wisdom, because wisdom's a lot cheaper. Because wisdom means you're learning off of someone else and their journey. And hence the reason why I read a load of books and I listen to a lot of podcasts. And, I get around very successful people and I listen to their journey and what they've done. And that's the reason why. Because I'd rather learn by, and I learn by extremely unsuccessful people as well. Because it's like, oh my God, you can tell me everything I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And I could learn from that. Or you could tell me something that maybe you became a casualty of, but I could adapt it and actually be successful with. And it's maybe wiped him out completely. Andy Shaw was a classic example. Andy Shaw had 300 properties. And Andy Shaw got wiped out in the credit crunch, because what he did is he borrowed 2% of the equity of the properties every year to survive on. And that's the mistake he made, because when it came to the credit crunch, He got wiped out because his loan to value was far too high, and the bank called everything in and took the 300 properties and wiped him out completely. That's the lesson I learned from Andy Shaw, as well as another one: property for nothing, money for nothing, and property for free. You know, that there was another thing he taught me as well, Andy Shaw. But I learned a lot out of no. Do never borrow from your company like that unless you're investing the money in more income earning assets. Don't borrow it to spend it. That's the worst thing you could ever do. It's not tax deductible, by the way, with interest payments on it. That's what everybody falls foul of. Oh, you can just borrow it and you can go and buy yourself a car. Oh, well, actually, that's treated as income, so you'll be income tax on it. Or if it is a director's loan, then potentially you'll have to pay interest on the payments as a benefit in kind, or and also the interest on the interest will not be deductible either against your profits for your taxation, because it's a director's loan. So this is the things you've got to watch out for and learn from other people. So that's why feedback is so important in order to understand where everything is. I mean, I've told people, I've had now and again, I've had feedback from people, and then, you know, okay, I'll take it on board, and then I would go to the various people and talk to them about it within the organization, and they would go, well, it wasn't like that, it was like this and like that, and then I'll go, okay, it probably isn't what it was then, what they were saying, but it was good for them to take that feedback on board and be empathetic towards that person's plight and the fact that they felt they were hard done by, when it actually wasn't that at all. And then when you go back to them and explain to them, yeah, okay, I get it. And then they would go, yeah, yeah, okay, I understand now. I agree with you.
The feedback's such an important thing in any aspect of a business, and I think that you do really need to make yourself comfortable with taking feedback, whether it's positive or negative, because the negative feedback or you know, the critique feedback is so important as well, because then it allows you to review and
of course,
you know, adapt and change if you where you need to.
Look at the biggest. Well, I call it a scam. Look at the biggest scam going. Windows.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft used to release Windows every single time, like Windows 95, Windows like 98, iPhone. Windows 2000. Well, look at iPhones. iPhone 1, iPhone 2, and iPhone 3. They were all just making upgrades as they go, right? And all they were doing was they were just testing it on other consumers and then getting the feedback and going, okay, this is how we can improve it the next time. And they were getting the consumers to pay for all their improvements over the years. So it tells you everything, doesn't it? The feedback is essential in being better at what you do. That's key here. So Apple's done it. Microsoft has done it. Virgin does it. I'll tell you, as soon as I told Richard Branson, I says, well, we're on Virgin Voyages Rockstar just the other night before we came to Neckar. He went, I hope you had a great time. I says, fantastic. It's a completely different level in comparison to the other cruise we've been on before.
Yeah.
Completely different level. Stratosphere, light years out. First words out of Richard's mouth. What could we improve? Oh, sorry, nothing. No, Jim, if we could improve one thing. You heard this before, by the way? If we could improve one thing on one thing, what would that be? And I actually gave him my feedback, and he went, yeah. Took all the notes down. He went, I'm going to speak to the team about that. Like, what? So it comes from him, because he says, what can we improve on? And I says, actually, now you've said that, there's another thing I think you can improve on as well, which is the app. I says, the app, doesn't it? You get on a ship and you have no idea where anything is. I says, it would be easy enough to actually have a tracker on an app, on the app that you've got for Virgin, because they give Wi-Fi free on board, by the way. You don't pay for it. The Wi-Fi free. So you've got a tracker where you are, and then you've got a place to where you're going. So you know the restaurant you're going to. Because every single time I go up and I thought, is it down this way or is it up that way again to get to that restaurant again? And Elaine, oh, it's down that way. We go down that way and we get down and go, oh God, it wasn't it. It was up the other way. So we'll have to go that, because you've only got 4 or 5 days on there and you don't know the whole layout and you don't know where everything is and you don't know where you are in relation to that. Make it easy. God almighty. If Uber can do it, if Google Maps can do it, surely you can do it on your bloody app.
Yeah.
He went, that's a really great point.
That is a good point. Basically, drop a pin on the boat and it shows you where you're going.
Show you where you want to be, where you
Yeah.
are, and it's like, oh, I've got to go that way to get to that place.
Mm-hmm.
An easy thing to incorporate into your app.
Yeah.
So if that appears, I'll be taking royalties for that.
Yeah, I was going to say you take credit for that, but that's
I'll be
that's
going
really
back to him. I'll be going back to
that's
him.
a really good idea.
It's like I'll get another week at Necker for free.
But yeah, and that's a prime example where feedback, and like you say, that was such a great experience and everything was brilliant. But then, as a true, obviously, leader and business orientated person, he still wanted to know where is there something, even just that small incremental change that I could make that
It's
experience better.
inherently built into
Yeah.
him. Every single time where somebody says you've got a brilliant business model, I love doing what you're doing. If there's something I can improve, and it's actually something that we should do every time, even though we get 5-star ratings, Richard, I'm going to say this publicly,
Yeah.
even though we used to get 5-star ratings in the Estes, and we've got 99% approval rating,
Yeah.
we should still say to everybody, if there's one thing I could improve,
yeah.
what would it be? And we still ask them that.
The feedback's the only thing, or one of the main things, that's going to help you change and become better at what you're doing.
Yeah. So if there's one thing I can improve, what would it be? That's a great one to get comfortable with the feedback. Yeah. And no matter if somebody's negative, no matter if when their initial discussion, no matter if they're positive in the initial discussion, that's the thing you should ask every single time after we've got the vote. Get the vote first, by the way. Then you can ask them that.
Then ask what's the one thing.
Because then it's like, mind you, it's like I can go back now and change it. No, you can't. No, you were giving us 5 stars in the beginning. But the reality is, all we're doing is asking you if there's anything that we could do to improve, the journey or the experience for you. I think that's a really important point.
If they're giving you 5 stars, you've obviously already provided a really good service, and it might just be a really minute detail. But if you change that, you're upping your game as well, and then that's really bringing you your world-class service. Do you know?
It could be. It could be the app thing. It could be the fact of the app thing. You've got it already, and all you need to do is tweak that bit and make it just that wee bit better. And it's like, yeah, that wouldn't cost us anything to do that. That would literally just be an improvement. That's it. We're done. So I think that's really important to get the feedback from customers. Even love what you do.
Yeah.
More so love what you do because they want to see you get better.
Of course, yeah, and they'll give you that feedback that's going to be instrumental to further success.
That's your loyal fans. That's the people that are raving fans about your brand. They love what you do. They'll tell everyone else, and that's the type of people I would want. And I would rather have 100 raving fans about what I do than 1,000 people that just like what I do.
Yeah, and I mean, you're obviously a big fan of the Virgin, the brand. So, but still constructive criticism, and it's helped probably push that to an even better level. And that app thing's brilliant. That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I don't necessarily go for the brand all the time. I'm not a brand insistence person.
No, I know, but you do like it
because we don't have Virgin mobiles.
No,
and I would stick with Vodafone because Vodafone works extremely well for us, and it always has. So I'm a big like, why reinvent the wheel unless there's something compellingly different that we could do? Oh, you could save £5 a year. Forget it. I could lose thousands a year with the wrong provider. So, but I'm a fan of using certain things from certain companies for that very reason.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, feedback and being comfortable with that feedback. Don't always think of feedback as a criticism as such and take it on board as a negative feedback. Do you know, if somebody's telling you something that could be done better, take it on board, work with it. It could help you.
Do you know a company that's not good at feedback? British Airways.
I'm aware.
It's appalling.
Yeah, I know.
British Airways is appalling. British Airways, more or less, their feedback is firefighting all the time. It's not. They don't send you any surveys about how you got on, how you felt about anything like that. But you more or less, the only reason you'll ever contact British Airways is to complain about something. And genuinely, that's the case. And 99 times out of 100, they'll solve it. But there's times that they just completely ignore you.
Yeah, I think that
I'm
time
still waiting on them giving me an answer about why they then resold my seats on that I paid for.
really that was ages ago.
2 years ago. Someone
Yeah.
else was sitting in these seats.
Mm-hmm.
They upgraded someone else on me.
Yeah.
And yet we wanted these seats because I was moving the lane from an economy to that business seat itself.
Mm-hmm.
And they had given somebody else that seat and I had
Yeah, I
bought
remember.
that seat already. They wouldn't let me cancel it. And they've never, ever given me a proper explanation for that. They've just fudged it and tried to ignore it.
Yeah.
They're appalling. But they've got a monopoly on certain routes. That's the problem. And, this is the fight between Virgin Atlantic and British Airways, the huge thing that went back in Lord King's day, where basically Freddie Laker said to Richard Branson, Freddie Laker was Trans Airways, which was the first commercial flights from Britain to America at knocked down prices. Now, British Airways picked on Freddie Laker and dropped their prices as well and wiped him out. But when Lord King tried to do the Dirty Tricks campaign against Richard Branson at the time, Richard went to Freddie Laker, again, having a proper mentor, somebody can give him feedback and information, and he could listen to. And the first thing Freddie Laker says, get the bastards. That's it. That's all he said. Don't let them away with it. Don't let them do what they did to me. And he took them and he won the case. And basically Lord King had to sit with, egg on his face and say that, he never admitted the fact he did it, but in court, the court said, yeah, you did do it. You did do it. So British Airways are absolutely appalling at taking feedback. They firefight all the time, whereas Virgin's completely different. They send you all the information, says, how did you get on? Can we improve things? Where did it go right? Where did it go wrong as well? And
completely different customer service experience.
Yeah. And that's how you improve, and that's how you build a huge brand of people that are loyal followers, because they feel a participant of that company. They feel they're not a spectator; they're a participator in the growth of the company. So they almost have it as it's them, it's the customers.
That's and their feedback, and they're valued basically.
Yeah. That's the key here. You've said that. You've nailed it, Richard, by that one phrase. We could have just said that and no bother doing the show. The customer feels valued.
Yeah, it's so important, the feedback and that whole experience. We're going to move on and talk about leading and following. Because as we talk and a lot of people talk, a lot of attention is paid to what makes truly effective leaders and the practice of management and things as well. However, there is much less consideration on how to follow, though that too is really important. Not just the leaders, but the followers, the rest of the team, and everybody involved. I think it's so important to concentrate on them, not just the leading part of things, because collaboratively, everybody's got that important input.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to understand when you should lead and when you should follow. You should be comfortable with following as well. I remember phoning. I remember the first interview I had at ESA Macintosh.
Yeah,
I remember the first interview I had, and Brian Dixon, Brian. Brian actually said to me, he was the financial director at the time. He said when they interviewed me the first time, Willie and Roy, the managing director and the sales director, operations director, Willie and Roy, they actually said at the time they weren't very sure whether I could actually follow, and I would always want to lead, because the position was working with Brian at that time, and that's what they were nervous about. And the first thing I said, and I've said it on another podcast before, is I play a mean second fiddle.
Yeah,
and I'm quite happy to support someone in their venture if it aligns with my beliefs and goals. And so I'm quite happy to help someone achieve. Hence the reason why we do a lot of community things. and we do a lot of community events in our community. We give away the money to them to help them. We do the Santa's Grotto for the people that can't afford it.
Yeah.
We do the Santa Train for the people that can't afford it. We do this dinner with Santa for the people that can't afford it in the RNLI. We do we're working on one now, actually, with the Kenaway Community Centre to provide all the toys for the kids at the one of the events that they're having there for the Kenaway Community Centre. So this is why we do all these things, what we are doing, so we can help other people out, and that's why I play a mean second fiddle with a lot of people, because it aligns with my goals, because they'll help. So if somebody wants to get involved in doing that, if Richard Branson phoned me in the morning and says, "Do you want to fancy get involved in Virgin Unite?" I'd go, "Yep."
Mm-hmm.
I'll be on the plane.
It's important to then understand, obviously, if somebody's got a better skill set or a better ability to do something that aligns with what you want to do, it's being able to step back and be like, right, okay, you lead with this one then, because you've got the skill set, you've got the expertise to do this. But and like you say, I'll be second fiddle, because obviously it aligns with what I want and what I'm interested in. But you'd be better leading in this instance, depending on what it is.
How can I play a mean second fiddle? Do you know why? Because I don't feel threatened.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't bother me. I can sit on a desert island for the rest of my time and just drink pina coladas. So why would I be bothered? I've got nothing to prove to anyone. I'm quite happy to support someone else in their venture. Hence the reason why we're like this with the stage and say, it's like, I'm here to help the other stages, including yourself as an estate agent, a land agent, and a director, in order to help you be the best person that you can be. I can't force you to do it, but I can help you do it. And I can help everybody else in that. And that's what, to me, is a true leader. But a person that's prepared to step up to the plate as well and actually lead when they need to lead by example, and show people, not just sit there and tell people what to do all the time, but not actually lead themselves.
But actually demonstrate themselves, like this is...
because the first thing anybody does is like, you're going, "Oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing this." It's like, maybe you should do it as well then. Because the fingers point back, don't they? It's like,
definitely.
Well, why are you not doing it? Why are you not doing it as well then? Show me how it's done. "Oh, well, I'm not really sure how to do it." It's like, well, so how the hell could you tell me what to do? This is the whole thing. It comes back to saying about the leading and following. If you're going to lead, you better make damn sure that you're leading people in the right direction and you've got followers that will come with you. Or if you're going to follow, you better make damn sure you're following the right track and actually supporting the person in front of you, rather than actually tearing them down.
And I've put on here as well about people having like that increased self-awareness, and unfortunately, some people are quite overly optimistic about their self-perceptions. And that really then drives their decisions about whether they actually allow others to have control and be that second fiddle. And it's basically their own.
This is why I said about there's some people out there that go in thinking they're going to be helping people when in actual fact they're not. Classic example of that is you watch The Apprentice. It's like you've got all these people that are alphas in their own right, from all different personality backgrounds and career backgrounds, and some of them have got no careers. They're just, they just blag it as they go. So that's fine. But they've all got an aspiration to be the leader. So the great thing is you then begin to see the people that are prepared to be team players and followers, and the whole thing as it works out. And you've got people that go in and it's like, you should be the leader. And the next minute they're tearing them down. And they're the one that have suggested they be the leader, and they're criticising everything that they've said. Listen, just follow the person, right? Do what you're meant to be doing, implement it, put your suggestion forward, and if they knock it back, that's fine. But still support them and do what you need to do to get them to get their target. And if they're successful, fantastic. That's the type of person you're looking for. These are the people that end up being in business with Alan Sugar. For that very reason, because they're not a person that will tear someone else down. I mean, the other ones might go on to make meteoric success and they might make an absolute fortune and all the rest of it, but they'll probably just be lone wolves. They'll not build a huge business, and they'll not be multi-skilled in what they can do for other people and help other people, so they won't be able to transition to other industries. They're one-trick ponies. That's all. They're not people that are self-aware about themselves and how they work. Somebody said on social media the other day about, oh, I've begun to do this and I've begun to do that, and I actually said in my comment was, yeah, self-awareness is probably the most important thing you can ever have about yourself.
Yeah.
And the fact that you know thyself. So you know when you've got to pull back, when you can push forward, how you are with other people, when you need to do that, when you need to up your game, when you need to bring your game down, depending on who you are and how you feel,
How do you
rather
need
than
to
actually
be
just
in
pushing
certain
yourself to the limit every single day without any thought about your own awareness at all, because that just burns you out.
Yeah, definitely. It's like how you need to be in certain situations. Like you're saying, do I pull back? Do you then obviously maybe take the lead in a certain situation? Do you know, and how you react to other people and the team as well, and then delegating and things as well.
This is quite an important one. Delegating, but not abdicating. So there's a difference. Delegate is when you give somebody a task to do, you oversee it and you make sure they're doing it correctly. Okay, not jumping on them every 2 seconds, but you guide them in the right direction to make sure they're doing it correctly. That's delegation. Abdication is, there you go, see you later.
Yeah.
And then a month or 2 months later, you come back and you go, that's not what I want. That's not what I wanted. It's like, okay, but I just interpret it as the way you did it because you never told me anything else. You never monitored it. You never looked back for the feedback or anything. So learning to delegate is so important, but not abdicating. It's critical for, I would say, as you said, for working collaborations, to be able to delegate. And that's the only way you can grow. That's the only way you can have a proper team, is to be able to give them. Why would you employ somebody? Here's a really good example. Now, I've done this recently with some of you guys, some of the senior staff and the senior positions, and the fact that you can take your holidays anytime you want. You don't need to come to me for approval. Because why would I employ you in the first place if I didn't trust you to be able to do the right thing? What was the point of employing you if I have to oversee you and tell you when you should take your holidays and when you shouldn't?
Micromanage what you're doing each day.
And then sign them off. Or you're only sending them to me just to put a signature on them because fine, the criteria is if you're up to date with your work and you're ahead with what you're doing and you're on track, then you can take holidays whenever you want. However, if you leave a complete mess and then decide to go on holiday and just leave a complete mess for someone else to pick up, that's when we've got a problem.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that'll ever happen.
No, I think when you've got the right individuals who will approach that and use that system correctly, then you won't.
Definitely. So it's about, why would you employ somebody if you didn't trust them and you have to oversee them at every 2 seconds and micromanage them, as you said? That's a waste of time. Ian had that as well. He had a boss like that. I mean, Ian's worked in sales for years, my friend. He worked in sales for years and he was really successful at what he did. And then he got a boss one day on a new company that he went to, and the boss micromanaged them all the way to the point where he actually looked in his boot and he said, how do you keep your files like that? You'd be better putting your files in this order in your boot so you can actually see them. That's how micromanaged this guy was. Telling them how he should file his files in his boot or his car for his clients. That's how detailed he was with everything. Needless to say, that didn't last very long.
That wouldn't last long.
Yeah, because you're going to have to find a really finite audience of people in order who would qualify for that sort of mentality of being able to work like that. That's like me. That's like finding a me. And it's like, you don't get me every now and again because I'm detailed and analytical, but I'm also prepared to keep pushing and consistent and disciplined and to that point. Whereas it's very rare to get that combination of skills in people, as is to get a combination of skills in somebody that's a leader but also an extrovert, somebody that's analytical but also an extrovert. I mean, that's a really difficult conversation. An analytical person and an extrovert at the same time. That's kind of conflicts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you're basically looking for an employee, which is a magical unicorn. So that's what you've got. You've just got to accept there's other people with different personality profiles that work in different ways, and they're not all like you. And if you had everybody like you, then the business would probably be a bit different than what it was now, and it wouldn't be as successful.
No, I think to have success, you need to have a mix, definitely.
Oh, Keith Cunningham proved it to me. You know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You know, that's
Yeah.
what the book's all about. Keith Cunningham. I mean, he sat us down and he says, okay, there's a survival guide. There's the 1 to 30 things that you should know if you're lost in the desert. So your plane crashes in the desert. There's the 30 things. Put them in order
of importance.
of the most important thing you should do in a plane crash in the desert. So you do that yourself. Okay, yeah, I know all the answers to this. And he says, right, okay, now get together with a team of people. So 5 of you get together and all discuss your answers and come up with another form with what you believe based on the group discussion about what the best answers for the survival was in the desert. Now, he did this with about 10 groups. Do you know every single person? No one individually got a higher mark than the group got collectively.
Which shows collaboration is so
Collaboration.
important. Yeah.
That was the most important thing. And this was all different people from all different backgrounds and all different personality styles. They all had something to give to that conversation, which influenced the decision, which made the answer better. So a group decision is often a better decision than an individual on their own.
Yeah. And so collectively, they were more successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So,
that's it. That's where we can end, I suppose.
Yeah, we could. Yeah. Collaboration is obviously with listen, empathy, comfortable with that feedback and the lead and follow thing as well. And do you know what? If you're feeling maybe like a bit frustrated with maybe a lack of collaboration, then simply maybe ask yourself, what have you done to really encourage it? Have you actually done anything that really encourages
Probably nothing.
collaboration? And if not, then that's what you need to think about. So, but that was good, Jim. Thanks for all your insights and obviously discussing that show with me today. Anybody who has any questions about that, feel free to jump in the comments or contact us or contact myself. And until next time, we'll be back with the Wealth Creation Show Monday, 12:30 as usual, and I'll leave it there today. Thanks, Jim.